Okay, and welcome to the second video where we have the opportunity to hear from 4 more chaplains about what they've been discovering in the last few weeks in lockdown. They're all working in a variety of contexts and all have completely different experiences. And I'm really, really delighted that they've been willing to give us some of their time today to actually explain what they've been doing. So as you know, my name is Maggie Everett, or you may not know, my name is Maggie Everett, and I'm the Lead Development Officer for the Centre for Chaplaincy and Education. And together with other organisations, we have been seeking ways of trying to support you as you develop your chaplaincy ministry at a distance from other people in the last few weeks. And while some of you, I know, love media and are very experienced in that, I have created the phrase of being rather a techno numpty, but even I have learned how to hopefully use Zoom effectively to be able to record these. So today I'm really delighted to welcome my 4 colleagues, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, and I'm going to start with you, Stephen.
Hello. My name is Steve Blyth, and I'm chaplain at North Warwickshire and South Leicestershire College. And I also offer chaplaincy services to our multi-academy trust as well. We are a fairly large college. We have 5 campuses that spreads over, funnily enough, North Warwickshire and South Leicestershire, with a mixed cohort, students that range from 14, I think our oldest ever student was 97. So we have a wide range of cohort there, but my main body of work probably would sit within our 16 to 19 learners, and from there on in. I run a multi-faith chaplaincy, which seeks to offer chaplaincy services to people of all faiths and none, staff and students. And I'm there as a pastoral body, and also as a part of the teaching and learning response as well, offering enrichment and tutorials and various other things.
Great, thank you, Stephen. How about you, Josh? Where are you from and where do you work?
Hello, I'm Josh Hunt. I'm the full-time lay chaplain at Felixstowe Academy, which is an amazing secondary school on the Suffolk coast. I've been doing that job for about 6 years now and absolutely love it.
That's fantastic, thank you. And Kay?
Hi, I'm in Abbey Grange, which is an academy in Leeds. It's a Church of England academy. I've actually been there for quite a long time as a teacher, but I became chaplain nearly 7 years ago now when I became a lay reader, and it's an amazing job. Very diverse community, truly comprehensive in every sense of the word, with people from all different backgrounds and all different experiences in life.
Thank you, Kay. And finally, last but not least, Jen.
Hello, I'm Jen Mullis, and I'm the chaplain at Emmanuel Junior Academy, which is in Sheffield, which is an Anglican Methodist academy, and I'm a Methodist minister. I've been involved with the school for well over 20 years, but the formalisation of the chaplaincy has been about for the last 5.
That's great, thank you. You're very welcome. Now, for those of you watching this recording, what I've asked everybody to do is to produce one thing that has worked really well with staff, one thing that has worked well with students, and an unanswered question. So we're going to start with the thing that has happened or that you've been able to do with or for staff in the last few weeks of lockdown. So can I start, Jen, can I start with you? What have you been able to come up with?
Yes, we've got actually quite a lot of children of key workers in schools, so we've got quite a lot of the curriculum going on. We've got about 25% of our children in, and so I've been getting questions about how to deliver the RE curriculum creatively, and so that RE lessons remain fun and engaging, and that's been happening both on the telephone and through email, and indeed through Facebook. So offering resources, suggesting creative ideas, suggesting how passages might link together or not, or where to go next with some of the tricky questions that particularly the Y6 children love to ask.
Okay, great, thank you very much. How about you, Josh?
For me, it's been individual emails to staff to ask how they're getting on. That's been really, really fruitful. And in trying to think of why, because I know that's not rocket science, it's not a revolutionary approach. I think it's because in looking at my own inbox, it's so full of courses I should be doing, resources I should be looking at, live streams I should be tuning into with the kids to help with their remote learning. And actually to have an email that's just for me that says, how are you? How is the family? It's really, really refreshing and quite countercultural. So I think that's why personal emails to individual members of staff has been really fruitful as a chaplaincy pastoral response.
Thank you. Stephen.
Hello, yeah, so for us, I think what's worked well, we do the emails. We're trying to keep in touch with staff that way. That's really important. I've been writing a weekly reflection, which has gone out to all staff, which tries really hard to not be a sermon, but it is something that is thinky. It's a part of our weekly communication strategy called Thoughtful Thursday, and it's part of a weekly supply of information and support that goes out. And the response has been good. I hope it's been good. I wouldn't suggest it's necessarily wonderful material that's being written by me, but I hope it helps. And certainly some of the feedback that's come back from staff has been positive. So that's worked well, I hope.
That's great, thank you. And Kay, what about you?
Well, I've been doing a sort of collective worship thought for the day with the students, and I've been sending that out to the staff every day as well, and just tailoring a message to go with that to staff. And it's opened the door for staff to reply, and I've had lots of little messages from staff and been able to sort of personalise those messages. And some of those have been requests for support, some have just been, hi, how are you? Some have said how they've been really valuing those little reflections every day. So it's just been a way of keeping that communication open with the whole of the staff.
That's great, thank you, because I think that is the key really from what you're all saying. It's about that communication, isn't it? And still maintaining and developing those relationships, even though we're not able to meet face to face. Thank you for that. So next we come on to the thing that you've done for students. So can I go back to UK, and what have you done that you think has worked quite well?
Well, one thing that I've done is a bit of an online residential, because every Easter for many, many years we've done a trip up to Swaledale and we couldn't go. So colleagues that normally do the teaching, we did little video reflections on some of the Psalms, and we had some younger students, children of one of our colleagues, who did some silly games, and an ex-student who did us some silly videos. And we sent those out at like the times when we would normally have done that on the weekend. And then we did a Zoom on the Sunday afternoon where we all took an ice cream and we sort of shared ideas and chatted. And it was just really great to see about a dozen of the kids turned up to that, and really enjoyed seeing each other and having that chance to communicate. And some of them even brought their instruments and played for us, which was lovely.
That's fantastic. It's really good, isn't it, that they actually wanted to engage with that as well. That's brilliant. Thank you for that. Jen, what about you?
Well, for me, it's been storytelling and, you know, using something I love to communicate both Bible and non-Bible stories. The feedback's been really interesting. The feedback as one thing it said is actually just read stories you love, because actually that helps us to engage with the story. And I choose the non-Bible stories quite carefully to have a really good message and to be quite engaging. But also I had feedback that some of the former students who are now in secondary situations are tuning in and perhaps getting a bit of comfort out of the familiar. And I think that's really encouraging. Yeah.
That's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah.
Josh, what about you?
I've been able to move a number of the kind of lunchtime clubs and after school clubs that I run onto our school's online learning platform. We use Google Classroom, for example, but for a number of the activities that I run, like theology club, chess club, gardening club, it's been really helpful to keep in touch with small groups of students and to be regularly posting short videos and short challenges and links to other websites has been really, really helpful. Although it has made me realise, in the example of chess club, that actually when a student looks at a chess conundrum and they post the solution, move the queen to h5, it's not quite as rewarding as an actual game of chess during a lunchtime at school, because it's not really about the chess, is it? It's the conversation that you have while you're playing that game of chess. So it has been great to keep in touch with these students, but it's also made me realise what we're missing through that face-to-face contact as well.
Yeah, and trying to create those opportunities to maintain and to develop those conversations is really challenging, isn't it? Stephen, what about you?
So obviously during this season we can't do everything that we would normally be able to do. We've had to prioritise what's important. And I've always been a believer that a community often reveals its heart by how it responds and deals with those that are most vulnerable within it. And certainly for us as a college community, that's something that's really important to us. Every Christmas and Easter we'll make hampers, food hampers, with some gifts as well, put together. That's stuff donated by the staff community and some of the student body as well. And these go to our most vulnerable, our most at risk within our own community. But that's been particularly poignant this time round. We forwarded our Easter provision so that we could ensure those that would be most at risk and most vulnerable during this lockdown period got one of those hampers, and also got the support that went with that. So it's not just a practical thing, have you got enough baked beans? It's also ensuring that they know that they are cared for, that we are on their side, that we are with them throughout this. The values of our community are still there, even though we physically aren't there together. So that's something that's been complementing our normal welfare and calling around, emails, asking how people are as well.
Those are great. So it's such a diverse selection of ideas, which is just really encouraging and really inspiring to know that, you know, you're still finding ways to reach into your communities and to bring people on, which is fantastic. The last thing I asked you to think about was an unanswered question that you have. So, Jen, what would you say was your unanswered question? I
have got one, and it's occupying my mind a lot, and that is, how do we support children who are transitioning in September? So we are a junior school, so we have transitioning at both ends. We have Y2s coming in who are coming in from a non-faith school into a faith school, and equally then we are sending our Y6s off. And I think we need to plan both for how we do that if we have been back in school, but even more so if we haven't, you know, how we make that transition work.
Yeah, that's really important, isn't it? It's about looking at celebrating the endings before the beginnings, and all those kind of complicated things that we're all very aware of, but are even more stark, I think. Thank you. Kay, what about you?
I think going on from that, thinking about when we do go back, how do we create those spaces, whether that's in services or in liturgy or in prayer spaces or whatever it is, that allows both staff and students to process what we are going through and perhaps will continue to go through. And I think just getting ideas and thinking through that process is going to be really important for us as chaplains in our communities.
Yeah, very important question. Thank you very much. Josh, what's your question?
It's very similar to Kay's, which is how do we respond and process the current crisis that we're in? I think some of us would be quite comfortable with leading events around remembrance, for example, or leading prayer spaces following a particular terrorist incident, or maybe even leading an assembly around an issue that might be prominent in our local communities. But to do any of those responses to this crisis almost seems inadequate in some ways. And so I'm constantly trying to think of how can we mark and respond and process what's happened, but also realise that it may be something that goes on and has some disruption and fallout for quite some time as well.
It's very true. And finally, Stephen, what about your question?
Funnily enough, very similar in tone. And I think that's right, isn't it? That we have these questions about what's next, you know, what happens after all of this, because it isn't normal, even though the phrase new normal has been used quite a lot. I have to say that phrase does irritate me quite a bit. Because it assumes quite a lot there, and there are students who within our community who won't have eaten a meal with another human being for 6 weeks. You know, that's not normal, that's not okay. So I think we have to be careful about what we say is normal and what isn't. I think more focus on what is humanizing, what brings flourishing, what brings goodness. And as chaplain, that's something that I'm very interested in, and I'm working with my directorate to kind of ask, well, what do we do when we get back? And signifying, as has already been said, the end of one chapter and the start of the next for those students that have now gone and they've not been able to say goodbye. Well, what can we do to signify that? How can we show the respect that that deserves,
Yeah.
and show the importance in that young person's life, because it's a part of their story and we should honour it. So that's certainly something that we're reflecting on.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for your wisdom and for sharing your experience, excuse me. But also thank you for being honest. I think that's something that is a real characteristic and quality that, in being honest with whoever watches the video, but also with each other, and with our communities too. It's really important that we are real about what we're experiencing. So just before we close, I just want to say thank you, Stephen and Josh, Kay and Jen. I'd just like to remind you that we host a CCE, a prayer room every morning at 8:30. And if you're not engaged in other activities, we'd love to see you there. And also for chaplains, coffee and cake at 4 o'clock on Zoom again, if you're not zoomed out by the end of the week. A chance to really get together, to relax, to begin to unwind at the beginning of the weekend, and to actually find some fellowship and some support with people who are experiencing similar things to yourself. We're not in the same boat, but we are experiencing similar things. And finally, may you, Jesus said, may you know the strength and courage that comes from the truth. And the truth is, Jesus spoke when he said, "Fear not, for I have overcome the world." That is truth. So no matter what your experience today or tomorrow, Jesus has gone before us and has overcome the world. God bless you.